Well, Jadash, it's Marie from Skeletorama again. Welcome back to my channel. So how's everyone? We are on episode 3 for this particular build here, number 4, the Gryphon Desk. So this episode is paint, and more paint. We're going to be doing all the different paint finishes to it, and then we'll cap it off with attaching the wood desktop, which now that I've seen how it looks, I'm going to do this, I think, to a lot more things. So anyways, hope you guys enjoy. Cleaned up, I've gotten some more brushes out because I'm going to need some small, I'm probably going to need some small brushes in this, but we'll see when we get there. Anyway, so what I wanted to do is let's tackle the desk blotter thing first. In this, what I might end up doing is once we're done painting it, as long as I like the finish and everything, I may take another piece. Where's the rest of this? See if it's big enough. It's big enough. Yeah, it's big enough where we can put it, like so. Well, no, I need it a little bigger, but I have chipboard, so it's not a big deal. But do another piece where it comes, like around it in black, because normally those things have a piece that goes across here and then covers each corner that holds this in, and then this is the blotter is the part you can replace. And that's usually the part that's green. So we may do that, but in the interim, I want to get this to the right green color that I wanted in the first place. So that's what I'm going to do. So in order to spare my desk, I am going to put a piece of paper towel under this. And so I have here some green distress paint. This is Lucky Clover. This is the best green that I had. But as you can see, that's a little bright. Let's do a little bit more than that just in case, because I'm going to mix this. Oh, I definitely don't want to mix too little and then have to hit the same color again, because that's not going to happen. But I also have my black here. So I put a teeny bit of the black out. Nope, I'm going to shake the black up better than this again. Okay, that's a little better. I just need literally like a little dot. So I'm going to take, I think I'll use this paintbrush here for it. Just going to take a tiny bit, put it on here, put it on here. You really should mix this with, like a palette knife or something, but I'm rather lazy, so I don't feel like doing that. So there we go. Squish this out. I want to pick up just a little bit more black, a little bit more than that, because I want this to be kind of dark. Let's see how many, let's see how overboard I get. Did I go overboard? Probably. Okay, no, that's not too bad. It's a nice dark green. That's kind of more where I wanted it, because this green was a little too cheerfully green. All right, squish out all the extra in here, bring it back in. Okay, that should do it. And then I'm just going to paint this nice dark green. Go ahead and pick it up and get the edges, just in case I decide to leave it this way. I definitely don't want them to be white. And I usually do kind of like to do the edges first, because they're the biggest pain in the tail of it. Okay, put this back down. I'll pick up the green and get the rest of it. Okay, and by the way this is looking, this just needs one coat. I'm going to go over it to make sure I didn't leave any obvious brush strokes anywhere. I'm going to set that aside to dry. I'm going to go clean this up, and I'll come back and we will talk about those pieces. All right, so I got this cleaned up again. So here's what I'm thinking about the table. I'll make sure I got all the paint off my hands so I don't transfer any. So it's going to have the wood top, which is right here. Okay, it's going to have this wood top on it, and it's going to have copper as well. Oops, as I knock it over. So the copper looks really nice with it, but I think if we do the whole table in copper, same with the chair, it's going to be a little overwhelming. So my thought is I'm going to paint this brown. I'm going to paint this bottom part here brown, and then the copper part will be the Gryphons on here. And then same with the chair. It'll be painted brown with the exception of this part here, and then of course the back of it will be that copper color, and then the rest of it will be brown. And then we can hit it with the Sculpey glaze or the Deco Art triple thick glaze, whichever one, so that it's nice and shiny. But I think that would probably look best on here, so it's not too overwhelmingly gauche, right? So what we're going to do is I've got a couple different browns. I'm going to kind of hold them next to this one here and see which one is closer. So this one here is a little bit closer. What about this one? That one's way darker, so nope. All right, so this is what we're going to start with. I'm going to shake this up real good. And for one of these parts, I definitely want the smallest brush that I've got. So probably this one here. We're going to do the brown first and then the copper, because I'm going to have to put the brown in these little spaces. There's no way to do it without getting it onto this, but then I can very carefully go over it with the copper. Am I going to get one on the other? Probably, but you know, at least this way, or we can, you know, maybe not try for getting these inside. We'll see. If I can get these inside lines right, I wouldn't mind making the insides of this copper as an accent, but not the outside. So we'll see how that goes. So let's get our brown paint out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this small brush here and use this to get all the little small areas. So I'll probably do the inside of this here. I am going to do the inside of these brown regardless of whether I do copper on it as well, just to make sure that I don't have any white spots when I'm done. And then I'll switch over to here real quick and get this bottom part, because it has a lot of little detail areas that I need to get into, so I need a little small brush for it. I'm definitely going to put this on fast forward. I'll see if I can hopefully have zoomed in so that you can see a little bit better, and we will get going on this. So as you can see, what I went ahead and did is got the edge things in here, because again, I don't want to have any white bits. I can go over it with copper. This is a cheaper paint, so this is going to take at least 2 coats to look decent. The copper paint is a much higher quality paint, and it will take 1 coat. So this way I can make sure that, again, we're not leaving any little white bits. I'll be able to paint over this just fine. It's not going to hurt it at all. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, let's see, let's do the inside of this at least, since everything's going to take at least 2 coats to do. And then we will move on to the other one, then we'll just switch brushes to a larger brush. But this way I can get as little on this back piece as possible with the small brush. So there is that part of it, most of it. We'll go ahead and hit the tabletop too, but not until this is dry. That way I can set it on its bottom. I just want this to not be white. I'm probably not going to put a second coat. I don't really care. Now we'll switch back to our little brush here, and we will do, let's get some more paint on here. We will do our second coat on here. Right, so there we go. It covered much better the second time, so that was nice. I switched brushes also, but I am seeing a couple little spots that could use a little bit extra, so I just throw some on there. Okay, so I'm going to go rinse these out. Again, always make sure your edges are staying without the paint drips and stuff on them, but I'm going to rinse these brushes out, and I will come back and we will do the copper. So now, we are ready for the copper paint. So this particular copper paint is part of the heavy metal set I got from Stuart Simple, which is beautiful. We have the copper here. I've also got the gold. I was debating on doing gold on here, but I think the copper, since its tones match the wood a little better, it'll be a little more subtle. It's still going to be shiny and pretty and whatnot, but I don't want it to stand out that much, because then this would have to be the focus of the room kind of a thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my copper and put it in my palette here. And I always try to leave the little sealed for your protection bit on there, because it does help keep your paint from drying out over time. So a little bit of it out here. I'm probably not going to need a whole ton. It's fairly thick, so that'll probably do it for now. Probably more than enough, actually. All right, so close that up. Got my microfiber because I did get some on my fingernails and on my hands, and I don't want to transfer that onto the wood part, because then we'll have to cover that up. All right, so I have here this little teeny tiny brush, which I think I'm going to use to do this part and these little parts in here, and then I might switch to a larger brush for the rest of it. Not sure yet. We'll see, because I definitely want to have as much control as possible over this. So I'll zoom in, hopefully, on this. I'm going to paint it very, very, very carefully. so that was a bit of a pain. I do have a little bit where I went over with this when I was doing the edges, but it's really hard not to, because the dark brown paint and this dark brown makes it really hard to see where the edge is in space. So, but I was able to get the interiors of these without really any spillover, so I'm happy about that. So now we can set that aside and we can move on to this one. Same sort of thing. So wish me luck on this. I think I'll do all my edges first. Right, so there is one side, which took a bit, and it looks like I missed right there. But I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these. I'm not going to fast forward through the whole thing, so it take way too long. And I will come back to you when this part is done and we move on to the next part. As you can see, I have finished the copper parts here, and they look pretty darn good. So we are going to put, I've got some Deco Art triple set glaze that I'm going to put on there. So it'll give it a little more of a shiny wood finish, because this is a little flat and I don't know how to do very well a faux wood finish on here, so I'm not even going to attempt it. But when you put the glaze on there, especially because I made sure it was kind of, you know, I did the brush strokes up and down so that it would be like wood grain sort of thing. When you put this on there, it does tend to look like that, and it'll help balance out the big contrast between the shiny copper and the dull rest of the paint, because that does look a little odd. But and I went ahead and put a little bit on here just because it was bugging me. It doesn't really matter, because we're going to put this on top of here. Okay, so we are going to use Gorilla Wood glue for that. And the reason I didn't want to put the triple thick on and then do it is because I'm going to use clamps to hold it down. And if I put that on the glaze and it's not cured and all that good stuff, it's going to mar the finish, right? So let's go ahead and open up the wood glue. All right, and I'm going to put a fairly decent amount on here. Because I'm going to spread this out, so I'm not just going to leave it like that, because that would be weird. All right, I'm just going to leave that over there though. So I'm going to go ahead and brush this out with my finger, making sure I'm going all the way to the edges. So I want this to be held down nice and tight, especially because when I put the glaze on, the glaze does have, you know, a liquid component to it, and it can tend to make things warp sometimes. So I want to make sure this is down real good before I do any kind of finish on it. Kind of a silicuribdus, you know. It's either going to warp on you or it's going to leave marks when you put the clamps on. So I'll take the warping over the clamp marks, that's for darn sure. Okay, so now I've got my tabletop here, and I'm going to place it, and I'm going to center it on here. I'm going to start clamping it down. So I've got a whole bunch of them, and I'm just going to clamp the heck out of it. I do expect some of the glue to come squishing out the sides. I would be very surprised if it didn't. But I will get all that stuff when, you know, once it's clamped down. I'll kind of move clamps and get the squish glue, move clamps, get the squish glue. I'll start here though. So same thing, I'm going to get it especially right at the corners. Make sure my corners are aligned correctly. There we go. Same thing over here. As soon as you get this glue on, you know, of course your wood's going to want to go this way too, which is why we're clamping the heck of it. Okay, get some more in here. Oop. Oh, I hate when they lose one of those things. So annoying. There we go. Okay, see, now we can see some of this glue going. All right, so I'm going to go along with this. I'm just going to wipe the glue. It will kind of continue to ooze out for a little bit. And you can take the clamp off so you can get to the glue under it and then put the clamp back on if you like. That works just fine. It's really the only way to get all the glue. See how it's continuing to ooze out? So I'm just going to keep watching this and wiping it down as I go. So let's get this side here for a second. That's probably as good as it's going to get for now. Once it does dry completely, I can go in and I can scrape that off as well, which is what I'm most likely going to do, because, you know, I mean, you'll be scraping this stuff off forever any other way. So it just keeps on coming. So I am going to let this dry for a good long while, probably several hours. Just because I want to make sure it's nice and dry before I do anything else to it. But yeah, so far it's looking very cool. So I will see you guys at the next step then. All right, so I've taken off the clips. There's a little bit of glue bits that got on there. Not too bad though. You just take them and you can kind of scrape it off with a fingernail. But yeah, this looks a lot cooler, I think, personally. I'm not biased or anything, but you know, especially if you look at it here, it's a lot more substantial now, and then that beveling really gives it a finished look. So I am very happy with how that's turned out so far. So now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and put some of the triple thick glaze on it, because that way it's going to have more of a, you know, polished furniture sort of look to it. So we'll put some of that on there. We'll do the tabletop last, but we can go ahead and do the underside. I mean, nobody's going to see it, but you know, it'd be nicer to have it done, you know what I'm saying? So I'll start getting all of this. I'm not going to do the griffins on the bottom just because, I mean, they're metallic paint, they don't need it. So I'm going to switch down to a smaller brush for here because I only want to do like the insides of this, then I'll get the rest of it. going to let these dry. I'm going to go rinse these out, and we will start working on the cushion for them. Okay, so that was the end of the third part where we did all the painting and stuff, and so it's starting to look really good, and we are going to do in the next and final part all the different finishing touches. We're going to be glazing them, we're going to do the seat cushion, we're going to do the blotter, and we're going to take a look at the final thing. So see you guys then. Geen meer mischief, ben Glaze. Bye.